Welcome to the theater. When you watch a play, you are seeing the result of hundreds of people and thousands of hours of work. We're here at the Bethany Lutheran College Theater, and we're going to look at the theatrical process from beginning to end. It all starts with the playwright.
To me, the art of playwriting isn't about getting published. It's about making awesome things happen on stage for an audience. One of the most important things a playwright needs to start with is a direction.
The one idea, the one type of character relationship, the one object that seems very important, and then the world kind of expands from this little idea, this little nugget.
I'm a big proponent of play mapping. I'm a big proponent of knowing where you're going to end before you start writing.
Somewhere I've identified what's important, what are some major themes.
I like to map out what are the major plot points in a show. When Emily and I worked on Above Board, man, I think we just spent weeks and weeks just going, what is the story?
This should happen first, this should happen second, then maybe this happens sometime later, and then this is how it's going to end, and then you kind of fill in the gaps. Who are the characters going to be?
I think we had like 10 people in the cast at first, and then we whittled it down to 9, then 8. You know, people, we just said, no, we don't need this person. What about the landlord? No, we don't need a landlord.
What types of people they're going to be.
Can one of them be a magician? Yeah, one of them's a magician. Well, what can they do? What's their weird thing? Well, maybe they regurgitate. Yeah, that'd be funny.
I like to name people pretty early because that seems to help figure out who this type of person is, or maybe it means something, like this name means grieving or something, and that somehow helps me connect to what their story within the story is going to be.
So it helps when I have a person that I can talk my ideas through with. Collaborating with Emily has been really cool. That's been a huge and integral part of this process for me, has been the collaboration. Then I can say, okay, what if it's like this? What if it's like that? Okay, never, no, that's really stupid. We can both agree that that's really stupid. So we're not gonna do that. And then, we're just bouncing ideas off of each other.
It's just sort of talking things through. I would say most of my playwriting process isn't at the computer or at my notebook, it's pacing. And just walking around the room thinking, and then, okay, yeah, that's good. And then I'll write down that salient point.
And so maybe it's, I craft this little snippet of dialogue and that leads into this purpose and this objective and this scene, but then I'm going to go back and build into the beginning. Or I know how it's going to end, so maybe I want the final lines right away, and then I'll kind of go backwards. When I've collaborated with other people, we end up doing something a lot more linear. Scene 1, this happens, so-and-so enters, lights up, it's a lovely house, blah, 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 and then these things happen. Okay, scene 2, what happens next? And I like both ways.
You gotta have a map. You gotta know where you're gonna go. This is maybe why adaptations are sort of fun, because when I'm doing the Seussification of Romeo and Juliet, I didn't write Romeo and Juliet, somebody else did, so at least I have the story. All I gotta do is Seussify it. I gotta make it sound like Dr. Seuss. Same thing with The Legend of Sleepy Hollow. The story is already there. How do I make it interesting for an audience?
Our outline was Hans Christian Andersen's fairy tale. So we read several different versions of that, and then we sat in a room together and we're like, okay, great.
Pinocchio is weird because Pinocchio is nothing like the Disney version.
There are multiple adaptations. It's all relatively the same, but one adaptation might focus a little bit more on this one thing. We do outline that initial story, or we outline other people's tellings of the story.
The play map for the Disney version is like this, but then Pinocchio is a big, long book. He's going to all these weird places, and one chapter might be, he sees a snake, and the snake is vicious, and then it starts breathing fire. Cut. We don't need it. You get rid of that kind of stuff.
And we say, what do we want from our adaptation? What can go? What can stay? We looked into how other people portrayed it, too. We wanted to see what other people are focusing on, what's sort of the colloquial understanding of this piece, because we want to please the audience when they're watching it.
I start with something very rough, and then I go back and refine it because I need words on page, and if there's nothing there, there's nothing to fix. So I always go into stuff thinking, I'm gonna need to fix this later. And maybe I come back and I realize I don't need to fix it, but if I need to fix it, at least there's something to fix.
Economy, condensing, making sure that everything can be done in 2-hour traffic of your stage.
Some of that is within the private writing sessions. So the cool thing when you're writing with somebody else is you've got that built-in, okay, hold on, let's read that back. You read that to me. Just kidding, that was crap, we gotta change that.
What ended up happening really naturally was that we would start with scene 1, finish scene 1, and go on to scene 2. And usually we'd finish like a block of scenes and then say, okay, let's go back, read it, and kind of clean it up.
Maren and Emily have been writing, and then they've been inviting a couple people to just sort of sit in. What do you think of this?
Well, we wrote Act 1, and now I think we just need somebody else to read it with us that isn't us, that hasn't lived it for the last several months, that isn't proud of all these funny jokes or this precious little line.
I personally thrive on constructive criticism. I need someone to tell me that that was the bad choice. I need someone to tell me that that was the wrong choice, because then they could probably tell me what they think a good choice might be.
We got quite a bit of feedback from people of, oh, I think this character should be seen more. This character maybe seems underdeveloped.
Then they add a few more people. Now there's a charcuterie party and we're eating cheese. And then there's the final read through. We've got people here in the seats who can listen to us read through it.
I hope people think it's beautiful, because we think it's beautiful.
What feels really cool about this project specifically is that it's ours, not just Maren's and mine, but it's also Bethany as our department, as our people involved, as staff and faculty, designers and students and et cetera, that we're tailoring it literally to fit the type of theater that we love making. We're creating it literally for us.
I think that when you're writing a play with a friend or with a partner, it might go a little quicker because your opinion isn't your own. Your opinion is yours and somebody else's, and sometimes you can come to a consensus quicker.
I guess that's the cool thing about collaboration, is it's still 100% of me and 100% of a writing partner all working together, and it's just 200% of an awesome play.
I know that when Emily and I worked together, it was so easy to bounce ideas off of. Same thing when I work with Hans. And it becomes a lot less drudgery when you've got a friend, because we always laugh better together.
Being in the same room, bouncing ideas off each other, laughing hysterically at something that now no one else has laughed at since. But I mean, that's one of those things too, where it's like, we've had so much fun writing this, so we want people to have as much fun watching it or hearing it as we have.
When we did write Sleepy Hollow, we completed it over a summer, so it was about 4-ish months of us actually sitting down and writing.
So far, in any of the plays that I've written or co-written, it's been about, I guess, 6 months.
Jam Jar Sonnets, for me to get the story down, I think that probably took about 8 weeks.
You hear it mentioned to you, you let it just sort of tumble around in your brain a little bit. Finally, once you maybe have an idea of where to start, you start getting a little bit more excited. You invest a little bit more of your brain power into it. So it is a little bit of a nudge. It's like, oh, that could be fun. That maybe we should do that. And then it becomes more and more like, oh yeah, we're doing this. This is gonna happen. And then finally, you'll see it on stage.
Writing for the stage is so interesting in that there's a chance you will get to see that different interpretation. I'm writing it, I'm a playwright, but I'm not gonna be the one directing it. There's an element of trust there where I'm like, I'm gonna see the process, but I'm not gonna have the creative control afterwards. I'm gonna see exactly how other actors, other designers, another director is going to interpret my work.
And if you're a playwright, you're the one who just had a little kernel of an idea at the beginning of this whole process, where now you've involved, 100 people into this cool idea. And if other people do this play beyond you, if it gets published and it goes on to other venues who are doing this, now you're talking about thousands of people who have been involved in something that just was a few firings of some neurons that you had in your brain. And it's super exciting to be a part of that. That's a fun artistic process to follow, and it's really fun to see how that grows and grows and grows.